Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I'm so excited for this one. Thanks everyone who's on time. I'm a minute early, but we're probably going to start on time today. I see a few familiar names already. Charles, how you doing? Good. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. See you again soon. A lot of traveling coming up for a lot of us. If anyone's going to be at ASGTG or at Inspire or at Prosper or really anywhere in the Northeast, I'm pretty much going to be all over the place over the next 6 weeks, I think. But big thank you to everyone who's joining in. I'm gonna wait literally maybe a minute or two after 1 o'clock, and then I'm getting in because I've got so much stuff to do, so much stuff to get into, a lot to talk about today. Love seeing all the note takers. I love everyone can be here remotely is fantastic. Thank you all for joining. Let's do the usual thing while we're waiting for the slackers for a couple minutes here. Let me know where you're from. Where's everybody from? I'm out in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I'm outside Philadelphia. You got a chat option. Feel free to let me know where you're at. Also, happy to hey Charles, sup, dude? What's going on? It's good to see everybody. This is gonna be fun. I'm so excited for this one. This has been I have been preparing for this for 2 or 3 months now, give or take. This general topic, and then finally wrapped up everything relatively recently. Super excited to dive into everything. I'm gonna give everyone still a couple minutes here to get in. Good to see everyone. A bunch of familiar names. Oh yeah, looky. This is great. This gang's all here. This is fun. Oh, been a while. I hope everyone's Thursday is going really well. Here's the deal. I know sometimes these things can be super boring. So I'm going to do everything I can to make it really interesting. The other thing I'm going to let you know, I am wildly sometimes over passionate about general omni-channel marketing and how I feel about brands that are solely reliant on Amazon. So I may go off on a tangent. I may talk too fast. And if at any point you need me to slow down, please just let me know. But I think we're going to dive in here. So welcome to Amazon is getting more expensive. I was going to add some expletives in there, but I chose not to. Quick housekeeping thing. There is a chat. There is a question option. I try to keep this as interactive as possible. I'm a live person. I am here. I can answer any questions you have. Feel free to put them in. I do have a lot I need to get through today, so I might leave some for the end. But if any pop up that I know I can get to immediately, I will. And then obviously I'll have those towards the end. And I want to clarify something. This is not about chat is disabled. Good start. That's not cool. All right. Well, you got Q&A options then. So you can shoot me a question and I'm going to have to why? Oh, wait. There we go. You should see it now. Thanks, Charles. This guy's always here helping out. Sorry. Anyway. Okay, something to clarify. This is not about abandoning Amazon. I'm not going to tell you get away from Amazon. That makes absolutely no sense. This is about growing from off Amazon. This is about strengthening Amazon, but not leveraging the marketplace in itself. So this is going to be extremely strategic. This is not going to be tactical fluff BS. I'm going to have some very specific things in here. So if there's anything that you have questions on, obviously, like I said, feel free to put it in the chat, which I hope is, there he is. It looks like the chat's working, or shoot the Q&A, or obviously you can email me later. But by the end, you'll know whether diversification makes sense for you or not, because it's not everyone. So let's do this. By the way, we're calling this Amazon is getting more expensive. I'm also referring to this as the feed the beast framework. And I'm going to tell you why. Big shout out to Nano Banana for letting me make these ridiculous Amazon beasts that you are going to see throughout the entire conversation today. But if you're not familiar with myself, my name is Andrew Maffetone. I'm the founder and CEO at BlueTuskr. I was also the lead marketer at multiple in-house lead marketer at multiple 8-figure brands. So I have been in e-commerce marketing I'm going to be 20 years this summer. So this is all I focus on is omni-channel marketing diversification. I'm going to give you some insight into why that is. But the main reason that a lot of this is going on is really here's what I'm sure a lot of you are seeing, right? Amazon isn't broken. It's just more expensive, and that's okay. Amazon is going into kind of this new realm, right? Like you look 5, 10 years ago, give or take, and it was the heyday. You would throw a listing up, you'd make a ton of money. It was fantastic. But Amazon it's still the best acquisition channel. It's just changed and what you need to do to be successful on it as well as off of it. And it's no longer where you can live or die. There's other areas that you need to be focused on. And so the issue isn't necessarily performance as much as it is cost structure. So, sorry. So really what's happening is you're seeing that the sellers that are winning today, they adjust the strategy. They're not abandoning Amazon. They're not leaving. They're just like looking at diversification options or what else can they be doing besides just Amazon so they're not so reliant on the platform. So it's the platform effectively maturing, right? And so here's what tends to be the real tension. Amazon is an amazing customer acquisition channel. It's fantastic. People are there to shop. People are actively searching for things. They want to know what products are available and then they go to buy them. It is absolute garbage at customer relationships, if I'm being honest. There's no way to really develop a true relationship with your customer base on Amazon. It's just not. They own all of the data. The little data that you do get is very limited. There's no life cycle control. Basically, if you launch a new product, it's basically like starting a new business. There's really no benefit to any upsell, cross-sell opportunities. It's extremely difficult. You're extremely dependent on paid visibility. And really, like, if the acquisition gets more expensive and you don't own the relationships, your margins just get crushed. And that's basically what's happening. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today and what we were solving for. The other side of it, though, is what the user is seeing, right? Because we always talk about this from a brand perspective, from a seller perspective. We don't really talk about it like what's it like on the consumer side. And in 2020, that changed a lot. But actually, before 2020, I'm going to give you a little bit of a story here. This is my beautiful wife. I had the opportunity once to watch her shop. And so this was during peak Q4 one time she was shopping. And so this was as you see here, this was the, which I think is over my shoulder here. This was the journey she took. So she got hit with an Instagram ad. She went to the website because that's where it took her. She got hit with a pop-up. She filled out the pop-up to get like your standard, I think it was like a 10% off or something. She then looked around on the website and didn't really know the brand. So she wanted to clarify who this brand is. So she went to Amazon and saw all of their reviews, learned more about them through A+ content, things like that. But she remembered that she had the discount, right? So for whatever reason, she went back to Google and searched their name to see, I guess, what other results she was getting to see if anyone said anything. But then she went straight back to the website, to the product page that she wanted to. She then went back to her email, got the coupon code that they gave her from the pop-up, and then made the purchase. If you are a marketer, it's almost grounds for divorce. Like, I don't know what to claim. Who gets credit for that? Is it the Instagram ad, but the Amazon kind of helped with the social proof side? Like, and I know that this very well could be an extensive case, but the reality is that this is how your average user is shopping. This is how people shop now. Especially after 2020, the average user developed this ability to do extreme due diligence around their purchase. So even though you're running ads on TikTok, sending people to, let's say, a website or a TikTok shop, they're still going to do their own due diligence on the brand elsewhere before they make that final decision. And so even from a user perspective, this is still something that's happening. So here's what's going to happen. When we're all done, what you're really going to understand here is that off Amazon how to use off Amazon stuff as a ranking lever, right? Like, I know this also obviously extremely pertains to D2C stuff, but we're going to try to keep it a little bit focused on the Amazon side. We're going to talk about also when D2C makes sense. Sometimes if you're an Amazon seller, we think that it's the smartest thing to like, oh, I got to launch my own website next. Sometimes that's not the case, especially for certain product lines. Lowering overall blended acquisition costs, that's going to be obviously a big thing. And then at the very end, I'm going to basically talk about the exact, like we call it the escape plan of Amazon. Again, we're not trying to completely get away from Amazon, but we are trying to reduce dependence on it. And we have a whole framework that I'm just going to give everyone who decided to show up today. So really what we're going to talk about here is that there's clarity on the overall issue, not more channels. That's not always the answer here. So if you are here, should you stay or should you go? right? This is specific to people that have issues with rising tacos, people that are extremely reliant on PPC, um, issues with competition in your product line. If you're kind of considering D2C, but you're not really sure how to approach it, or maybe you have already ventured into D2C, but it's not doing what you need it to. So before I go, just so I'm not wasting anyone's time, mentally check if this pertains to you. Because if it doesn't, enjoy the rest of your day. I don't have to bother you. The ones that maybe should go. If you have a completely new product, this is probably not going to be for you. So feel free. There's no harm. You can leave. It's okay. If you don't already have product market fit, which you'll know if you do, this may not be for you. If you're looking for a hack or some black hat type of thing, definitely not this event. If you don't have like a real brand strategy and you want to develop a business outside of Amazon, this may not be for you. And realistically, just consider that, right? Because I don't want to waste anyone's time. And that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. The big question is why does it even matter, right? Who cares? Here's the reality. These are facts. Over the past 5 years, FBA fees have averaged an increase of 10% year over year. CPCs have averaged an increase of 8% year over year. Competition is up 6% year over year. Last year at Prosper, I was doing a presentation that was obviously very specific to omnichannel marketing, and they didn't tell me that I was going to get the awesome benefit of doing this conversation right next to Amazon's booth. And I actually had someone from Amazon come up to me afterwards and tell me that 73% of sales on Amazon US last year came from overseas sellers. I kind of take it with a grain of salt. I mean, he mentioned that it was brands that it was people that either have an entity in the States but are actually overseas, or it's literally companies that are overseas. I still kind of take it with a grain of salt because I don't know if maybe he hates his job, but the reality is that's just clear margin compression, right? You have fees going up, you have CPCs going up because of competition increase. Granted, don't get me wrong, there's actually less sellers onboarded last year than in years past, but it's still more people coming in. And so what's happening is you're having all of these overseas sellers and more competition coming in, which is decreasing the average price point of products. And yet all of the fees are going up, both from Amazon's side and from increase in competition, which increases your CPC. So it's just crushing your overall margins. And it's just causing this whole like algorithm volatility where it's like you really can't, it makes it extremely difficult to win on there. So your margins are getting crushed. Plus, there's another thing. So another small story. I'll keep this one quick. Back when I was in-house, the wife and I had actually, I think we had like a few weeks after we had signed our mortgage on our first home. And I was at this good size 8-figure brand. Probably about 80% of our business was on Amazon. And it was Q4. So we were peak shopping. And we changed out the credit card because at the time it was like you couldn't credit it to the account or something. And so we're like, all right, let's change out the credit card until we can get that one paid off. And then we'll switch them. Like that was just kind of how we did it during peak times. And so we changed out the credit card. Amazon thought it was fraud and completely shut down the entire account. We were suspended for 2 weeks during peak Q4. I cannot even begin to tell you how much of a panic I was in because I had just signed on a mortgage and most of this company was now basically gone, at least in my eyes. So I went into this panic mode. And so that's when I realized like being so reliant on this platform is ridiculous. We cannot just rely on the one thing. So those 2 weeks, I was day and night figuring out what do we do from a D2C perspective. Then the reality was obviously we got back up and running and we didn't want to bite the hand that feeds us. So I was like, hey, obviously we want to keep growing on Amazon, but how do I do both here? How do I look at this a little bit more holistically so I don't bite the hand that feeds me, but I still grow off Amazon, right? I just didn't want us to have that exposure. And so we started to really develop a lot of omni-channel marketing strategies. Flash forward, I started BlueTuskr in 2020. And even last year, we were actually one of Amazon's agencies of the year because of our omni-channel marketing stuff that we do. So we were all super excited for this. And so basically, I think a lot of this stems from we have been pushing this omni-channel diversification concept for years now. And it really kind of comes from the struggles that we're seeing with sellers, right? Because the struggles, the sellers that are seeing struggles are the ones that are trying to just outbid everyone. Like, oh, you're just playing the paid ads game, and you just can't do that because you're just so dependent, and you basically, you can't win. So the ones that are winning, they're the ones that are learning how to feed Amazon from outside of it. And there's a few examples as well here that I'm going to show you too, but those are the ones that are going to be the winners here. You have to feed the beast, right? And that's where this kind of framework comes in. So we're going to talk about this concept. Basically, you have to drive qualified traffic externally. It's the best way to really help the overall ranking concepts. And that really helps from improving your branded search side. And I know there's an argument around whether you should run ads on your brand name or not, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But if you're seeing an increase in branded search on Amazon, you don't have to fight for all those keywords because all these people are coming to Amazon because they know you already exist and they're actively looking for you. There's other ways where you can actually test your messaging off Amazon in a significantly less expensive way that we're going to talk about, that you then can move over to Amazon to leverage so that your ads perform even better. There's ways that you can send that high converting traffic back and forth from Amazon. Amazon now lets you drive traffic to your website in certain scenarios. And you can actually figure out how to own your own customer data so that you can control your future and so that Amazon doesn't, right? So here's why this works. Amazon rewards the stuff that we all know at this point, right? Amazon's algorithm is very straightforward. Conversion rate, sales velocity, as long as your keywords are relevant, great reviews, etc., all that basic stuff. So as long as you are still maintaining that, anything you do from an external perspective is going to help. So when you kind of influence those different things externally, your ranking improves on Amazon. So it's really about influencing the inputs and not necessarily fighting the output. So example, I don't want to brag, which is a horrible pun, but if you're familiar with Bragg, they're a client of ours. We've worked with them for a very long time. And I'm going to use them as an example here. In this shot, right? So if you look up apple cider vinegar, at least when I did it, this was what my algorithm gave me. They showed up as the first two options, and then their competitor showed up third. This is a common question we get all the time. If you look at that third competitor, Goalie, right? They have 365,000 reviews. Bragg does not. The number two there is 20,000. Number one is 20,600. How are they outranking Goalie, right? They are more expensive in certain scenarios, less expensive in others. The Goalie's got a 4.4 rating, so I will mention that. So there's pros and cons to it, but they still shouldn't be outranking them when they have that many more reviews. What tends to be happening is I can tell you that the amount of off Amazon stuff that Bragg does, both from things that are directed at Amazon as well as things that are not, are allowing so much external traffic to come to Amazon that it's actually allowing them to outrank them because the conversion rate and the sales velocity is that much higher. So here's what a lot of these brands are doing differently, right? They're not really chasing the hacks. If you're looking for black hat stuff, I mentioned in the beginning, this is not for you. It doesn't work, right? It's a short-term result. You need to build authority so that when competition increases, who cares, right? Because they already know you're the first mover in the space. Think of the Kleenex concept, right? You don't look for a tissue, you look for a Kleenex. So people thought Kleenex, so it's just brand awareness. It's the same thing where AI comes in, right? AI is already starting to lean towards this as well. A lot of the LLMs factor in brand mentions more so than anything else. And so just being referenced in a lot of places allows you to get mentioned in brand and AI more frequently. So you have to kind of treat Amazon as like this conversion engine, not necessarily the starting point. And so these brands, what they're doing is they're obsessing over experience, and they're obsessing over basically the experience that allows them to convert better with Google and with AI, because that's obviously a big factor in now, right? So here's kind of the 5 ways that brands can feed Amazon. And this is what we're going to talk about today. You have capturing demand, you have testing messaging, you have building retention, you have amplifying strategically, and then you have generating UGC velocity. So we're going to go through a bunch of this stuff. And all 5 of these elements is what we're going to talk about. Very first one, right? So demand capture. This is mostly on the SEM side, so your search engines. So this is both Google advertising and SEO initiatives. This is a statistic that I find that people don't ever kind of wrap their minds around, and it's definitely from an Amazon perspective mostly. 55% of searches begin on Amazon. A lot of Amazon sellers love to talk about that. They completely ignore the other 45%. 45% of product searches start elsewhere, not on Amazon. 35 to 40% of them start on a Google platform, period. So that's 2 options. That's YouTube and that's Google search, right? So that means if you could literally add almost 50% of search for your product, obviously you would do it, right? So why are we not acknowledging what's happening from an off Amazon perspective? So you can see here the same thing. The apple cider vinegar, if you look at it and you search it on Google, the first thing that shows up is Amazon search results, and Bragg is listed as number 1 in terms of the search results. And then the third option is their actual ASIN. So it's not an awareness thing, it's a traffic thing. And so from an SEO perspective, you can actually focus on how you can improve your listing on Google, which will get you higher rankings on Google, right? And so obviously, if you make it to page 1 on Google, you're seeing a lot more traffic, which means you're seeing a lot more qualified traffic, which means you're getting a lot more qualified traffic to your Amazon listing from off Amazon, which is going to bring you more sell-through, conversions, reviews, engagement, everything that helps you improve on Amazon, which is why we see Bragg ranking number 1 and 2, right? So this is basically if someone searches your category on Google and you're not there, you're letting your competitors take it, right? So this is where the off Amazon side of SEO things becomes a very pertinent element that you have to focus on. So if your product isn't represented in trusted content, LLMs won't surface it, right? So from an AI perspective, obviously it's not possible to have any type of presentation anymore and not talk about AI. So that's what we're going to do here. And so if AI can't understand your brand, it's not going to recommend it. And the way that it tends to understand your brand is by taking in brand mentions, right? So from a traditional SEO perspective, it was like Google wanted like actual structural things. It wanted backlinks. It wanted content on your website. It wanted all of these elements. LLMs want the exact same thing. The one additional thing that they want that is actually easier to get in many scenarios is more from like a digital PR perspective. So getting your brand even mentioned, it doesn't have to be linked anywhere, but the more that your brand gets mentioned, the more it gets referenced. So like in this scenario, when you look up best apple cider vinegar, the first option is Bragg, and that's actually their Amazon listing that shows up. It's not their website. So you can actually start to improve your Amazon side. You actually start to see the same improvements on the Google side. There's ways to track this too, by the way. So we're SEMrush partners, so I tend to lean towards that, but you can really do this with anything. So like on SEMrush, if you actually go to the backlink analysis, you go to backlinks and you enter in your Amazon ASIN URL, it will tell you like all of the referring domains. It will tell you your page authority score for that specific ASIN. And you can actually set up alerts so that you learn when you're getting new backlinks and stuff like that. But that's crazy. Like that's the stuff that we're always keeping an eye on because everyone likes to focus on like Helium 10 and Data Dive and all this fun stuff from a marketplace perspective. Like, cool, that makes a ton of sense. But what about the other 40+% of searches that are happening from a Google perspective? So here's how the smart sellers are kind of using search outside of Amazon, right? So you need to start leveraging your Amazon data to improve the D2C side of things and vice versa. But you can actually pull your search terms from Amazon and build out individual exact match Google campaigns. And that's where you can start. So you don't have to start from scratch from Google. And of course, if you're already running Google ads, you can flip it. You can pull your search term reports from Google and then actually go into taking that data back into Amazon. So you can actually cross-reference everything. Everyone's pretty much searching a lot of the same way, right? So this captures more of your higher intent buyers earlier. It also increases your branded search volume and it feeds those Amazon ranking signals. So this can really allow you to start to rank better on the Google side and then take that data to take it over to Amazon and improve on the Amazon side as well. UX UI matters across the board, right? So This is a extremely underutilized element of SEO. If you don't already know that, I highly recommend looking into it. The reason Amazon ranks so well is because Amazon's had billions and billions of tests at this point. Their UX UI is in a really good spot. Websites tend to not do as well, especially from a D2C perspective. So your overall image quality, your A+ content, the clear value props, your reviews, the overall mobile experience, like if you have too much copy in your A+ content, which tends to happen all the time, all of that stuff crushes the UX UI, which reduces engagement on your page. That affects your Amazon ranking, but also affects your Google ranking. And so that's where you're getting crushed from both sides of things. Using the data to fuel Google is kind of, it kind of depends on the approach you want to take, right? So the assumption is that, if you let's say you search like collagen peptides unflavored is what we did here, right? And it's a high converting, high average order value, great thing. So then what you want to do is build Google exact match campaigns. You might want to do some SEO around those terms that obviously include your brand name. You can look at retargeting that traffic and sometimes sending it back to Amazon or back to your website. If you have a website, usually your margins are better there. And then this starts to increase that overall branded search lift, right? So if your listing converts poorly, driving more traffic just amplifies the problem though. So you don't want to do this unless you feel like your listing's in a really good position. The same thing on your website. There's ways that you can drive traffic to your website and then say to Amazon. That's again stuff I'm going to get into. This is when it makes sense, right? So if you're confident you've got a good conversion rate on Amazon, you've got very obvious top performing keywords that you're doing well with on Amazon, you've got healthy margins because it's not as easily trackable off Amazon, and you've got the demand in category, right? So that's when you want to start to take that information and start to leverage it from an off Amazon perspective from a search side of things. You don't want to do it if your product hasn't been validated, you got really low margins, you have no search volume from brands. Like at that point, skip over this, right? Conversion and messaging optimization. So this one's interesting. This one I find a lot of brands don't do at all. Amazon testing is extremely limited, right? Main image testing is very slow. Title changes are kind of risky in certain ways, and A/B testing is also super limited. Sponsored ads don't really test creative that well at all, and pretty much everything's kind of a guess. Off Amazon, that's not the case. So smart brands typically don't use stuff like TikTok to scale first, but they might use it to test. So a lot of brands where I find they mess up is they can actually test things off Amazon and then take those learnings on Amazon from a creative perspective. So I've already mentioned, Amazon rewards conversion rate and velocity, right? We know that. So if your listing, is converting at, 10%, and you can jump it up to a 12, awesome. No amount of PPC is going to fix that. It's going to improve your PPC, but it's not going to fix it. So this helps improve click-through rate, which improves your add to cart, which should improve your conversion rate, right? So the external platforms let you test all these different hooks like quicker. So you can A/B test different things on TikTok or on Meta. You can actually take all of these different creatives that you're testing, put them onto these platforms where you can get a ton of data real fast, find out what's working the best, and then replicate it on Amazon. Way less expensive because you have you have much more A/B testing capabilities, way more data coming in, and just less expensive. But the thing is, before you start scaling the traffic, you have to validate the messaging. So if you can A/B test it off Amazon and then move it to Amazon, then it justifies increasing the ad spend on Amazon as opposed to you A/B testing on Amazon, which is kind of wishy-washy, right? So how sellers tend to use this stuff as a creative lab, right? So this is what we like to look at. Launch a bunch of different stuff on Meta or TikTok, whichever one you kind of lean into. Test different hooks, different benefits, objections, things like that. Sometimes we'll pull data from competitors directly off Amazon, put it into the different messaging, and then that's how we'll develop these more A/B tests. And we'll do it on Meta and TikTok. Start there because it's way less expensive and you can do it with like just a couple bucks. Then you can figure out okay, what's my top performer here? Meta, TikTok, to spin that out, put more budget behind it. That's pretty self-explanatory. But then you can take it, you might have to resize some things, but then you can take all of that information and replicate it on Amazon. A lot of brands make the biggest mistake of finding like UGC or influencers or whatever creative that works really well, and they just put it into their social ads and then that's it. But you have like, what about your Amazon images, your A+ content, emails, your website, sponsored brand ads, storefront? Like there's so many different places you can put it, right? Here's the big thing. This is a big, TikTok is the new shiny object, right? So here's when you don't want to go to TikTok. This is everyone on Amazon. They immediately, for some reason, that's your first step, right? It kind of creates yet another siloed channel, which is effectively another problem. Creative testing is usually not fed back to Amazon. There's really not great attribution on there because you have the issue of if they go to Amazon, it's completely untrackable. Granted, if you're going to the TikTok store, that's obviously a different thing. They'll often scale before they even validate anything. They'll jump into it and be like, oh, let's do this because a buddy of mine's making a ton of money here. It can be a trap, and you have to make sure that it's the right thing. The problem is that strategy is simple because it's a theory, but the execution is where it becomes a struggle. So look, it's not a magic like growth button, right? It's more like a feedback engine. You're constantly getting insight and you have to adjust. Everyone thinks like I'm going to throw stuff on there. And, I know a guy who's making 6 figures a month on it or whatever. Like, cool. Like that one guy might've gotten lucky and gone viral. So here's when you definitely do not want to do this, right? Low margins, definitely don't. TikTok tends to be way better with less expensive stuff. That's about it. If you're not converting well on Amazon, don't think TikTok's going to solve the problem. Obviously product market fit is pretty self-explanatory as well. And if you're expecting to be profitable right away, absolutely not. Like there's no way. TikTok's an extremely algorithm heavy platform, which means you need to make a ton of content. And then it is also a pay to play platform, which means you have to spend some good money in the advertising world to just kind of get it out there. But TikTok, just like Amazon's an amazing middle of funnel customer acquisition channel, right? Middle of funnel. They already know what they want most of the time. They're actively looking for it. TikTok is a great top of funnel customer acquisition channel. It's an amazing place to introduce something new to someone by just creating some fun content and getting in front of them. The problem is that's not cheap. And to get them into your whole ecosystem is also not cheap. So it's great from a customer acquisition standpoint, but the retention is what's key. Is what are you doing to sell them something else later? What are you doing to get them to buy again or buy something else or subscribe, etc.? So if you've proven the product, or if you have like a clear differentiator, or if you're willing to test before you actually start scaling, it makes a lot more sense. That's where the retention side comes in, right? So now you have to retain them. So Amazon owns the customer, not you. That's obnoxiously true and it sucks. It is what it is. Amazon keeps all of their data, right? They completely limit you. They have no direct actual remarketing capabilities. There's no life cycle control at all. And there's absolutely no real LTV visibility at all. So you really are just kind of flying blind by the seat of your pants the whole time. So the reality is like, if acquisition costs rise and you don't control the retention, your margins are compressed permanently. You can't fix it. So let's look at this. If a customer buys twice, right, and your acquisition cost effectively drops, fantastic. You can't judge that on Amazon. So if you can drive repeat purchases through email, SMS, any type of D2C, reward program, etc., you don't have to keep trying to win them again on Amazon or on really any other platform. They're now in your ecosystem. So you don't want to re-enter like a bidding war. You don't want to have to, like, if you sell to customer A and they converted on a super long-term keyword, great. And then a month later, they forgot your brand name because you didn't build enough of a brand. So they searched the damn keyword again. You got to pay for them again. That's ridiculous. If from an off Amazon perspective, you're less focused on that direct conversion, you're more focused on typically your LTV. How long can you keep them? And then how frequently can you get them to purchase again? Because once they get into your ecosystem, you could break even on the first sale in some cases. I've got some brands we work with that are fine at operating at a loss on the first sale because they know that their product has such a repeat purchase someone comes back 3 or 4 times, they don't have to pay for that. All of a sudden, everything goes up. So retention doesn't necessarily replace Amazon, but it definitely protects it. So overall kind of flywheel of this, if you're capturing via like these D2C incentives, like warranty, registrations, content, etc., automated flows crush, post-purchase stuff, education, replenishment, all that fun stuff. So you can try to drive the repeat purchases on D2C, or you can send them back to Amazon. There's nothing wrong with it. You can use your Amazon attribution link and send them directly back to Amazon, but at least you're developing your own customer base, right? So you don't necessarily need D2C to replace Amazon. You just need it to capture optionally in the perfect world. Not every product, though, needs like a heavy retention side, right? Like not every product, this is a good fit. Sometimes it's like a one-time thing. So every brand should understand its LTV potential, but a lot of times, like sometimes it's a one-time product, in which case, like, I don't really know that I would go that route. You have a low average order value, also kind of tough, or margins are thin. Honestly, your margins are thin on anything. It makes it tough to do really much of anything. But I mean, if you've got a consumable product, you have something that goes on subscription, you've got some pretty nice margins around it. Obviously, maybe there's some additional product education that's required on like, hey, here's some other ways you could use this. Maybe you didn't think about. Those are a ton of other options that can make this work really well for you. Then how do you pour gas on it, right? So now we have the paid media side. Let's be very clear about how paid media works. It's not always a starting point. It's not a growth hack. It's really not a magic ranking button, period. It's an amplifier, right? You're pouring gas onto the fire, but you have to have the fire in the first place. So here's kind of the myth that I always find. If you drive traffic to Amazon, it's going to instantly rank better. Oh my God. If you have ads running off Amazon, directed at Amazon right now, I can almost guarantee you it might be really crushing your ranking on Amazon. It's not possible for Meta or Google or TikTok or whatever to optimize for conversions on Amazon because it can't speak. Amazon doesn't speak back to the platform. So Amazon's not telling those platforms who actually converted. So the problem is that those platforms can only convert for traffic. And that's going to drive a ton of crap. It's going to be a bunch of just BS stuff, which means you're driving unqualified people to your listing. So your conversion rate is effectively coming down, which is crushing your BSR. So if Amazon cares about conversion rate and sales velocity, that stuff doesn't work. So if you're sending that low quality traffic, like it's just increasing sessions, but it's crushing your conversion rate. So it's doing nothing for you. So that's one of the things that drives me crazy. I can't tell you how many accounts I've gone into them and I've seen someone doing it. It's like, please let me pause this. Like, while I'm in here. So it has to be qualified. But traffic is neutral, right? Conversion is what Amazon actually rewards. So when you start looking at doing this, your conversion rate on your listing is really good. You're super happy with it because otherwise, like, don't do it. Margins allow to focus on more of a blended customer acquisition cost. If you're looking at your Google ads, let's say you're doing Google ads, or let's say you're doing Meta ads or TikTok, whatever. If you're looking at that spend comparative to what you think you're getting, because maybe you use an Amazon attribution link, you're wasting your time. You have to look at your overall spend, factor it into your tacos. You have to look at your overall spend and then look at your overall revenue because it's having such an effect on your organic that it could be improving, it could be hurting. So you have to know that how you're doing it from an off Amazon perspective if it's really helping you from on Amazon. Product market fit is self-explanatory. And then of course, if you're doing Meta or TikTok, make sure you've tested your creative. So this can kind of help validate messaging. It can also help stabilize LTV, but this lever is what really helps amplify things. So one of the things I wrote down, external traffic amplifies what's already working, but it doesn't fix what's broken. If anything, it makes it worse. So if you have something that you feel like conversion rate tends to be the biggest thing or messaging tends to be the biggest thing, if you feel like that's not in a good spot, do not do this because you will waste a ton of money. How these brands tend to do this from an off Amazon perspective, that's where this gets kind of interesting, right? So retargeting is a fantastic approach. If you can do it, great. The example I actually have up here, if you have Buy with Prime or you have MCF, they now allow you to run ads from off Amazon to your website. So that's a flip of kind of what I'm talking about today, but that's 100% something I highly recommend, because then you can really use Amazon as that customer acquisition channel. But when you have the capability, you can still retarget Amazon visitors, or at least Amazon engagers. So let me give you an example. If you're running ads, and your ad clearly states that you're sending them to Amazon, which I usually suggest, the person that the algorithm is going to put them in front of is someone who is more likely to shop on Amazon. So now you can retarget the people that maybe didn't engage with that ad, but maybe they watched it, or I'm sorry, maybe they didn't click on the ad, but they engaged with it. They watched a good chunk of it. Now you can run additional ads to them and retarget them with some offer or something on Amazon, because you know that they have an interest in Amazon. But you still have to look at a blended ROAS. This is where I think a lot of brands make the biggest mistakes. They look at their siloed Amazon channel. They look at a siloed D2C channel. They look at each individual marketing channel completely siloed. How's my TikTok doing? How's Meta doing? That's so inaccurate, because your problem is that you're not factoring in from a sales channel perspective. You're not factoring in where they may have actually come from, because that's just where they finished. You don't know where they started. From a marketing perspective, you're often, while it's the same problem, you're often not thinking about what's the purpose of the channel, right? Like Meta, its job, and TikTok obviously are meant to more top of funnel. Typically, they're meant to educate. They're more visual, so they kind of build brand awareness a lot more often. They have great retargeting capabilities, but it's a great top of funnel strategy. Like I mentioned to you about how my wife shops, though, she goes to the website and then she goes to Amazon. So your Amazon's looking really good. I can't tell you how many brands have said like, oh, Meta's not doing really well, so I turned it off. And then the next thing they saw was down goes Amazon. So you have to look at your business as one big business, not 500 little ones, because you have a bunch of different sales channels. You have to look at a blended ROAS. You have to look at your blended everything. So Abby asked what Tacos is. So Tacos, your total advertising cost of sale. Usually you're looking at your advertising spend on Amazon versus your overall revenue on Amazon, right? Because the amount of money that you spend in advertising is going to improve, most likely, as long as it's converting well, your organic ranking. And if you start to cut your ads, your organic ranking is going to fall. So you look at a Tacos so that you understand how much of your overall sales is actually advertising spend, so you can kind of evaluate how your organic ranking is doing. What I'm referring to as well is technically that would be that same number, but I'm saying look at all of your ad spend versus all of your revenue, not just Amazon, but also D2C or Walmart or Chewy or wherever else you're selling. That also will help you evaluate the overall impact on branded search too, by the way. The best thing to do when you're trying to evaluate how well is my off Amazon stuff doing, go to your search term report and see how much more branded search you've gained over X amount of time. That's also, by the way, whenever you're doing this stuff, use your Amazon attribution link, get your 10% commission. You definitely want to do that. That's 100%. Always do it. It's not perfect because it's basically a UTM tracker, but it's better than nothing. Okay. Where it fails, where a lot of people mess up, right? Skipping creative is self-explanatory. Anyone who's chasing like these cheap CPMs, like great, your CPMs are super inexpensive. Chances are that means because you got a really rough audience there. You scale before validating. Like a lot of people try to, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I could put money on this and it's going to solve the problem. Crawl, walk, run every single time. Highly recommend it. So you just have to make sure when you're doing external traffic to Amazon, you have to have that more blended thinking concept. You can't just look at it as a siloed channel. Otherwise, you're not factoring it in. So many people like shopping on Amazon. Like, let me give you an example. I actually just got a new garage door and found out I had one of those garage doors that like I can give Amazon access to open my garage to put stuff in the garage. Love it. Didn't even know it was a thing. So what I've started to do now is when I find something I really want and I know I have an Amazon order coming, I might just go to Amazon to see if it's on Amazon to add it to that order so they can stick it in my garage because I've been snowed in for like 2 weeks now. So like it's not sitting out in the snow. So like either way, Amazon has developed such a way for consumers to be much more comfortable shopping on Amazon that it's just going to happen. So I've started saying this thing of like digital marketing today is a lot more like traditional marketing. And when I say traditional marketing, think of like Mad Men times, right? So, you watch Mad Men, you ever see an episode where they sat down with the brand owner and the brand owner was just like, "Oh, can you tell me what the ROI was of that billboard we did?" Like, no, like it's not possible. And it's the same thing that's happening now. Attribution is basically nowhere near as good as it once was. You're getting the user, especially after COVID, being way more due diligent on how they're shopping. So they're going to look into a lot of things. And so looking at everything siloed makes no sense because you're getting all this brand lift that's probably improving your Amazon business and you don't know about it. So you have to look at everything from a blended perspective. Now, influencers, UGC creators, getting down towards the end here. So I'm if you're bored, I'm wrapping up, I promise. This one's always kind of interesting, right? Influencers have a very negative connotation, and for some of them, I think it's justifiable. But here's what we're going to talk about, right? So influencers are not an awareness strategy, right? They are, if everyone who comes to me and says like, let's go viral, like, no, like it just doesn't work that way. So viral content also rarely equals profitable content, by the way. It usually means, typically, not always, but sometimes it's like, oh, they had a sale. We also got this great content. So you got a shit ton of new customers. Well, unless you're retaining them in a certain way, it's not really going to do much for you. That goes back to our retention conversation. And look, a ton of followers does not equal buyer intent. Influencers, I've got micro influencers that bring in way more money than anyone who's got hundreds of thousands of followers because their audience loves to buy stuff that they tell them to. So followers don't mean really anything. What does matter and what you actually want to use the content for? Demonstration, especially for kind of more challenging products, just general social proof, any objection handling. So like if you go through your reviews and you see a lot of people are like, oh, this thing's, not very durable or whatever, guess what content you should probably make? Someone saying that it's super durable, right? And then credibility. Of course, like influencers are influencers. They have influence, so they can provide credibility. So UGC, though, is a little bit different. UGC is great for conversions and not reach, right? Not so much on the reach side because they're not posting it. They're just giving you the content and then you have to go and do your own stuff with it. So using that UGC across the board is what's really important. So UGC can provide some additional social proof for you, which will help with the conversion rate, which will improve your ranking, which will lower your tacos. Super self-explanatory. Amazon shoppers, they're all skeptical. This was, in fact, I did an event last week with a bunch of brands in Europe that were looking to come to the US. And the main conversation was the US shopper deals with so many scams. How do you stand out, right? Like there's so many cheap products out there. Amazon is a glorified pawn shop at this point. Like there's just a bunch of crap. So like they're so skeptical. So UGC and like an actual person talking about the product can help a lot. So using your different influencer and UGC stuff from an off Amazon perspective obviously works in a traditional D2C perspective, but then you should be using it on your listings. You should be using it in your A+ content. UGC can kind of increase that trust, right? Video is always fantastic and it improves overall PDP engagement regardless. So when you start to get at good size numbers, those little tiny, like 0.5%, 1%, maybe 2% conversion lifts, those can be hundreds of thousands of dollars different a year, which is a huge option. So like not looking at UGC and influencers makes no sense to me whatsoever because you can't, paid advertising, like we said earlier, is not going to solve the problem. Don't chase influencer size. Like I said, ignore the size. It's completely irrelevant. Find a way to work with them, test them out. Chase content quality. Get good content. Work with good content creators because you can always take the budget that you might have used for influencers and actually spend more money on the ads. Of course, it's always kind of teach their own. What I usually like to do is we'll test like 10 plus creators and then like one decent size influencer and just kind of see what happens. I like to develop like a huge chunk of UGC creators that we really like, micro influencers that we really like, and then slowly start to test the slightly bigger ones because they can be really hit or miss. But you want to look for retention. right? Like even though everyone wants to see like, oh, how much money did this influencer make me? Like sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's nowhere near what you want. But did the people that influencer sent actually stay with you longer? Is the messaging that they said made them really confident in the purchase, and so they became a repeat purchaser. So sometimes that's stuff that's not always looked at. But as you find those winners, like in this perspective, you probably are testing this stuff in like Meta or TikTok or something, and take what you found that is successful and repeat it on Amazon. Take your top performing creative, make a product image out of it, put it in your A+ content, use it in some of your sponsored brand ads, like use it across the board. The value isn't always in the one post, it's in the asset that is that content. So look, UGC is a strong lever. I like it when your product requires demonstration. I like it when you need to explain differentiation, like especially if you're in a super competitive space. Obviously, strong margin works for pretty much anything. And if you have like the ability to test multiple creators, chances of the first one being awesome or slim. That's usually what happens. I hate this when it's a commodity product. If you're like, oh, I sell a garlic press, like, cool, man. By the way, I still love using the garlic press guy as my example. If you've been in the Amazon space, like 10, 15 years ago, everyone used the garlic press guy as their example. Still my favorite thing to talk about. You have a super low average order value, I probably would stay away from it too. You need like a clear, unique angle. Like my competitors have this product. I have the exact same thing in blue. Unless people really want it in blue, don't waste your time. So like that's where it becomes a little bit more, it can become super expensive. It's probably not going to differentiate you enough. But where it becomes more like a ranking fuel, right? So this is where leveraging all this stuff is just amazing because you end up with bigger click-through rates, you end up with better conversion rates, you have more time spent on PDPs. All of that increases your ranking. All of that improves what you're doing on Amazon, right? So like I said, the value's not in the post that you threw out on social. It's not in maybe the one ad that you threw out on social. It's in the asset and what you do with the asset. Good UGC creative can be a couple $100 sometimes. And you could spend a couple $100 on something that's going to give you, if it gives you like a 1% conversion lift across all of your assets, absolutely worth it, right? So the question is now what? How do you take all of this? How do you do stuff with this? How do you take this forward? This is where this tends to fail, right? This is where a lot of brands tend to mess this up. If you treat Amazon and off Amazon as separate silos, if I didn't get enough on my high horse on that one, let me know, and I'll be happy to go on another tangent for it. If you're testing stuff off Amazon and not translating it back to Amazon, this is going to be a little bit of a plug kind of thing, but like this is why I created BlueTuskr. I had way too many problems with Amazon agencies and then other agencies not working together, and it made no sense. So like we have to make sure that our marketplace team is working with our social team or with our SEO team, et cetera, because all the data is relevant. It's all the same shoppers. It's just different platforms. We have to know why the platforms are doing certain things, but we have to have everyone working together, right? If you have certain attribution expectations and you expect a certain attribution out of a certain platform, that's probably where this is going to fail. You've got certain channels that operate in certain ways, and then there are things that you can't track, and you have to accept that. You just can't anymore. It's not perfect. You could have an extremely great viral video on Amazon, or on TikTok, and have it go to TikTok Shop, and I guarantee you will see an increase in sales on Amazon. You can't attribute that. You can't tell me for sure it came from TikTok because Amazon doesn't share that data. It's the same thing for people that do streaming TV, by the way. When you run streaming TV and you try to send them directly to a landing page, I'm telling you they're not going there. They're Googling your brand name. Maybe they're going to Amazon, and that's where you're seeing a lift. You can't track that. It's the same thing on all the other channels. You have to look at everything holistically. So, if your data is you're not looking at data from a central perspective first. I'm not saying you shouldn't look at everything in more of a micro element at all, but you've got to look at it in a macro side. If you don't do anything about this, right, the reality is you will continue to deal with PPC dependency. That's just going to be the case. You're going to continue to see margins come down. with the way that costs keep going up on Amazon and the way that competition keeps coming in, I don't know how the Amazon platform becomes viable 5 years from now. It's just going to be margins are going to get crushed, but these top brands are using it as an acquisition channel, and that's really where it's helping. You're going to end up with way more competition, and someone's going to come in, build a tolerable brand around it where they're just kind of going around fighting the keywords all the time, and they're going to be the ones that see the most success, right? So then, of course, your question is okay, when and how do you diversify, right? Because it's not always yeah, I got to do this right now, because sometimes that's not the best case. You have to prove out individual channels first. So not every brand is ready to do this right away. That's definitely not the case. There's sometimes, in fact, I literally just got off a call with someone like a week or two ago, thought for sure they wanted to go on TikTok. And when we looked at stuff, I'm like, this makes no sense. You're basically trying to go to TikTok to solve your Amazon problem, but that won't solve it. If you're it's about the timing, right? It's about, as you're seeing growth, that's when you want to start looking at other options, not when you need it at the worst case scenario. I was kind of like walking through this concept with my wife, and she's like, oh, it's kind of like when a couple has like a baby because they're trying to rescue the relationship. And I was like, interesting. True. Not wrong. You don't want to go and have another baby if the relationship you already have is not exactly where you need it. I'm not a marriage counselor, so please don't take that. So this is what we do all the time, right? So we have, I don't even know how many case studies at this point. We do this stuff all the time where we look at brands a little bit more holistically and develop these more omni-channel strategies. So I really appreciate everyone joining me today and taking the time to sit here with me. What I wanted to offer everyone, we're just gonna give this away for free, because I know it's not going to be, I hope it's not going to be too crazy. I've got enough room for probably about a dozen of these. So we're going to offer our free omni-channel growth performance review. Basically, it's kind of a strategic evaluation of everything that you have going on and determine what your next best step is on how you can start to diversify. I know everyone probably wants to know about TikTok. Chances are it could be TikTok. It could be something else. So we'll do more of a deep dive into like one key area to evaluate if that's the best move, or if maybe your Amazon needs improvement first before you start to get into that. Some brands are absolutely going to be ready to do it now. Others may not be. So I've got I'll drop it in the chat too if you can't type it out. But you can head straight to that link. I'll also shoot you all an email so that you have it. So if you don't see it in your email in like the next half hour, feel free to check maybe your spam. I hope not. But I also wanted to make sure everyone walked away with something. So we developed an Amazon escape plan. This is literally, it's like 30 something pages. It is every single thing that we suggest on the steps to do it. There's even things in there we talk about where it's like how you can actually drive traffic to your storefront first to evaluate if off Amazon traffic is even relevant before you start doing it. So it's really a kind of like DIY blueprint, if you will, that walks you through each individual step and how you can do it more in like kind of a bootstrapped manner. So even if you don't apply for the omni-channel performance review, I highly recommend taking this and just reading through it. It's something you can definitely do internally. And like I said, I'll put it in your email in probably the next like 30 minutes or so. And I'll drop this link in the chat too, in case you guys have it. But thank you all. Appreciate everything. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, you can also feel free to email me. It's andrew@bluetuskr.com. Looks like I had a few people. Yep, I will get a recording out. The goal will be for us to probably put this up on our YouTube in the next week or so here. Followers matter to buyers. They aren't just looking at Amazon reviews anymore. So that's true. Followers can matter to buyers in some cases, but what really matters is the relationship that they have. Some people will get definitely, what's the word I want to hear? They will get influenced by an influencer that has hundreds of thousands of reviews. I know people as well that really like to follow certain people that have a couple thousand reviews, and they also have just a strong influence. So buyers, sometimes I'm not going to say that a lot of followers don't matter, but it also it's about quality, not quantity, right? Cool. I actually did it within an hour. I'm shocked. Like I said, thank you all for joining today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to shoot me an email. It's andrew@bluetuskr.com. That's BLUETUSKR. And Andrew said that there's an issue with the Bitly. Let me look at it real quick. Worked for me. Try that one too. That's the main link. Bitly was just easier to put on this thing. Yeah. And like I said, I'll have the Amazon escape plan in everyone's email shortly as well, in case you didn't see it. But otherwise, oh man, I did it right with a minute left. I appreciate y'all. Bunch of familiar names. Super appreciative of you guys coming out. Some of you, I'm sure I'll see on the conference run I'm doing over the next couple of weeks. But I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Thursday, enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you all another time. Thank you all.